1985 to 1996 are what I call my for-profit years in Russia. They were followed starting in 2001 until now with my pro bono years in Russia. But in the for-profit years, I thought, I bet I can take this idea to Russia. Russia lived on hard currency that it got from selling petroleum and petrochemical products. They wouldn't survive without it. But if you pick up oil in Siberia and ship it to Tallinn, Estonia, which was the open water port on the Baltic to get stuff delivered outside of Russia, it could take a week to heat that tank car. And we had something that would do that much more quickly, and it could be done by retrofitting those old cars. Russia was beginning to approach the bankruptcy that ultimately it went through. So in 1985, my second wife and I decided to get married, and we decided we would do what we call R&R, which is not rest and recreation as it was during the Vietnam War. It was Russia and the Riviera. We spent the first 8 days of our married life in Moscow, Kiev, and St. Petersburg. I knew enough by then, having done some homework, having never loved communism, but I knew that Russia was having lots of changes going on. So I knew that there was an organization called Amtorg. Amtorg was the commercial arm of the KGB. So I arranged for us, Joyce and I, to have a meeting on the first day of our honeymoon in Moscow with Amtorg. And I told them, I got something that you guys should have. And there was 3 of them. And I said, look, I think we could retrofit 5,000 cars, which is the number we ultimately retrofitted with our technology, and your cars will be much more productive. Because we knew it would take a week to unload them in Tallinn. We knew that if we took them to Tallinn, it would take a week to get them to Tallinn, Estonia, but we could unload them in a day. And if you're dealing with a beleaguered, age-old fleet that they couldn't afford to replace with new cars, this sounded like manna. So they bought into the whole thing. We did get to know the Ministry of Railways, the Ministry of Petrochemicals. They bought into the whole thing. I think we can all agree that Russia is probably, as Churchill said, a riddle wrapped in a mystery and an enigma. Well, I lived that life for a long time. I mean, it really is a very, very different place. And I learned to really like it in many ways, but I also went in skeptical. When I got involved, the month before Joyce and I got married, Gorbachev came to power. And when Gorbachev came to power, all of a sudden things began to perestroika and so on. I'd say basically through the bankruptcy that they went through or almost went through until probably the year 2000, things were upbeat. And most of the U.S., the State Department, a lot of the European countries were optimistic it would become maybe even Western democratic place. That was the basis on which a lot of money went into Russia as it fell apart to have the opportunity to make money and meanwhile to try to change the place. It turned out not to be so, and I'll come back to that a little bit later.